What's your first name?
Bridget.
We'd like to thank Bridget for engineering today.
Well done.
I'm talking to Joe St Pierre, who
Are we on? Is this on right
we're
now?
on.
Oh, wow.
I cannot believe we haven't met at the Comic-Con in Wilmington.
Me either. Because I've been to almost every one of Gary's shows. Gary's a great guy. Very cool.
Awesome dude. He had a store called Wexrex
That I
on Route
didn't know.
9. Oh yeah.
What do you
It
sell
was like
there?
this, but maybe 3 times bigger, and there was just stuff everywhere, like building 19 and a half of collectibles. It was insane.
I can see that, actually.
That's his
I
phone.
can see that. So what happened to the store? Because I want to go there right now.
I don't know, but you'll ask Gary.
Okay.
Say, Joe Vig interviewed me on Visual Radio. We're on Visual Radio with Joe St Pierre. I'm very excited because this is just great work.
Thank you.
And you have a new book out
Yep.
called,
It's called The New Zodiacs.
and I heard you talking about it, so tell us.
It's about 12 characters who can channel the cosmic energies of the zodiac. So the first volume introduces 4 of the 12, the first 4 of 12 cast members. And eventually the stories will start to interact with each other the way Marvel Universe does. They'll start to meet each other. But right now I'm rolling the characters out, I'm introducing them. Do you want to hear about what they're all about?
Miss Bridget
Sure.
said the book
I'm kind of
is-
reinventing the signs too, because like the new zodiac signs, they come from a older culture. It's maybe 3 to 20,000 years old, depending on
That's all.
what book you read. So I'm kind of modernizing the signs at the same time. So the new Aquarius is the Robin Hood of cyberspace. His name's the Liberator. This is him right here. He can access the web psychically with his mind and steal data from the info rich and give to the info poor. And then we have the new Pisces. This is Cricket. She can
Which
communicate.
color is she?
This is the Liberator's the new Aquarius. This
Okay.
is Cricket.
In
She
blue.
is kind of like a modern Ghostbuster. She can communicate with the dead trapped on Earth. So it's kind of horror with some tech edge. The second guy is the very first man who ever looked into the sky, looked into the stars, measured the stars, created constellations and mythology from those pictures, and he could tap cosmic energy. He's the first man who could do that. So he's the new Leo. And then the new Sagittarius is a giant, colossal volcano monster who protects the last bastion of civilization in the galaxy. And that's Molta, that's her on the far end.
Very cool. So you had to study the zodiac. Did you look at the Chinese zodiac?
Yeah, I have looked into that a little bit, and some of the signs that I'll be introducing will connect to that. I've also looked into Indian, the East Indian has
Okay.
a zodiac. Native Americans have a zodiac. The Celts have a zodiac. So I'm going to eventually start to sprinkle a little bit of everybody into that. That's the plan.
So are the zodiacs connected? Chinese zodiac and
Yeah, they're all looking at the same stars, and they're all making their own. Their culture is projecting their own legends onto these same stars. It's kind of fascinating, actually. And anybody who knows anything about the history of those signs, please send me a note or something, because the research is ongoing for me. So I love that stuff.
All I know is I'm Taurus, and a friend says I'm Saturn and Scorpio. Whatever. I got Saturn and Scorpio. What's
Well,
this?
that means good things are coming your way.
I hope.
Yep. This is for me to remember people's names.
Oh, it's not a tattoo.
No, not a tattoo.
That's funny. I thought there might be a zodiac sign on his hand.
I don't always have a notepad, so that's what this
Too
hand
funny.
is for.
I love it.
Yeah.
We are at the Book Superstore in Burlington. You're going to Peabody tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
That's a new store, I think.
Yeah, new location.
Oh,
Yep.
they were there before.
They had a
and
place in Danvers and they relocated. So I'm looking forward to going there because I was in the Danvers store like regularly. Yeah, it's a great store.
I love this place. I'm here all the time. I'm here at least once a week.
You buy vinyl here, you said.
Yeah, I love the vinyl. So
Awesome.
I'm upgrading my vinyl collection. And I
I have to upgrade my apartment size in order to upgrade my vinyl collection.
do you listen to Jeff Lawrence on WRKO on Saturday nights? He plays the oldies.
Okay.
So Jeff Lawrence wanted the WRKO vinyl. So he was good to us announcing a Sunny show and stuff, and Bobby Hebb. So I gave him a copy I had.
That's great.
So I pay like $9 on eBay and get another one. And I find one here at a ridiculously low price, and it's like, wow. So, but they're hard to find, and Lou Reed's inside it.
Somehow they're just popping up for you, though. Yeah.
Lou Reed is inside this album that has Sunny on it from WRKO.
Wait, how did that happen?
Because he wasn't a hit artist, right?
Was he a session guy?
No, Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground were a house band at the Boston Tea Party. So Bob Soma and Fusion, that's why I interviewed Bob Soma. MGM Records was endeared to Fusion because they wrote the first positive reviews on the Velvet Underground albums. So Lou and Bob became friends,
Oh, wow.
along with Jonathan Richman. They did the WRKO Christmas party. Why would you
be
have the
interviewing
Velvet?
you?
Why
This is
should-
awesome.
We're going to talk about you, but this is fun stuff that, we're talking about the bookstore and the goodies you can find here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And there's a Lou Reed photo inside this album that has Bobby Hebb Sunny, so my two
So wait,
favorites.
so how did the picture end up in the album?
The Velvet Underground did the hit radio station WRKO's Christmas party, which makes no sense. But my longtime guitarist
Slid
was
into-
there.
Okay.
He actually went to it. He goes, Joe, I was there. And it's like, whoa, because it was Velvet Underground. But, wouldn't you get Spanky in our gang?
So somewhere somebody had a photo and it happened to slip into.
Oh,
that.
no, RKO must have taken publicity shots at their party.
Oh, really? So
And
they
then-
were included in the mass production of the album.
The album was this Buzz Knight thing, which was a big thing in the 60s. They would have them on stations across the country. We'd have Sunny on it, The Letter by the Box Tops, the
Right,
usual
right.
suspects, Louie, right?
Right?
But if you were in Indiana, it would have the Indiana radio station, same records, different, same cover, but it with different call letters.
Oh, really?
So stations would pay this company that Buzz Knight had, and Buzz Knight would produce these records for stations across the country. Nice little business he had going.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And it'd be volume 2 and then volume 3.
Oh, yeah? So I imagine they're very collectible.
Yeah, because Jeff, who's on RKO now, RKO doesn't do music, as you know, they do talk.
Right.
His show on the Saturday nights is the most listened to show they have and does the best advertising for the whole weekend.
That's great.
So they renewed it, they tried as an experiment, they renewed it, and he's on his Facebook with the 3 RKO albums, thanks to me, and
And
inadvertently.
eBay and this store.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's our little thing about used bookstore. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you know Gary Summers. Tell us a little bit about your career. Have you always been in Massachusetts?
I have not. I grew up in upstate New York and spent about 20 years in New York City proper, that area. And then we just moved here, my girlfriend and I, about 5 years ago to Danvers. Found an apartment here. She got a job in Salem. So we've only been in the area about 5 years. It's very cool. Love it. Love to hit the beaches when we get time. We're pretty close. So
Some Saturday night, you got to come to the 4 to 7 at the Village Tavern. It's
I'd
fun.
love
It's
to.
free admission, and
I'd love to.
yeah, it's right in your neck of the woods.
Yep. That's in Salem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where'd you go to college, or did you?
I did go to college. I spent 2 years at Pratt and 2 years at School of Visual Arts, which are art schools. I transferred to the to SVA because Will Eisner was a teacher there. Do you know who Will Eisner
No.
is? So Will Eisner is like one of the giants in the history of comics. Started his own studios in like the budding days of comic book production, and he's an innovator in the form like throughout his career. So I was like, I want Will Eisner as my teacher. So he was at SVA, so I transferred specifically for that. So that was a great treat. Very cool. But I gotta say, I learned more a year on the job, like actually in the trenches producing comics, than I did in 4 years of school.
That's interesting you say that, because with Access TV, what we're learning is they have the classes, but you learn more by doing.
Oh yeah.
But it's
And-
still great to
and
have had
when-
his classes.
When I was in school, yeah. Oh, I can't say I didn't learn anything from the guy. I was inspired regularly. But while I was in school, I was paying for my tuition, so I had to work. So when my job was doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, producing comic book artwork, and that's my full-time job, I can dedicate 110% of my energy to the work. And so you know, my first job was at a company called Valiant. There were some very big industry names who were working there at the time. There's Barry Windsor Smith and Jim Shooter, Bob Layton. They were all like very noteworthy artists and writers of their time, and they were essentially my teachers, my mentors, while I was coming up in the industry. So it was a great opportunity. Made many friends there at the studio at Valiant, and I'm telling you, you know, a year in the trenches about, you know, find out what you need to improve in now, not tomorrow. You know, what do I need to learn how to draw a shoulder. Okay, let's figure it out now. I need to, you know, I need reference on such and such a location. Okay, find out now. You know, just crunch. It was a great experience. It was very cool.
And that was in the city.
In New York City, yeah. I was in the 20s. I think 28th Street in Manhattan. Yeah.
And where'd you go from there?
Where'd I go from there? Well, after I left Valiant, I went over to Marvel Comics, and I ended up in the Spider-Man offices eventually, and I've drawn more #1 issues featuring Spider-Man or his cast than any other artist in history. So that's kind of cool. It's something I just figured out like last year, that I did a lot of one-shots and special issues with Spider-Man in them. So that was, for me, that was a life's goal. It's like when I was a kid, my first rejection letter was when I was 10 years old. I got it from Marvel Comics, and I sent them my drawings of Spider-Man, sent them into Marvel, and I had my career all planned out. And so when I got that first rejection letter, it was handwritten in the 1970s, handwritten in red ink, you know, sorry, but you're not ready yet. I was heartbroken, but I never...
Did you keep it?
Oh yeah, I still have it. It's the only rejection letter I still have. You know, I got tons of them since, but that was the first one, so I kept that.
Well, rejection letters, people have to get insensitive to them because Bruce Dickinson, an old friend of mine, was the guy at the Harvard Coop selling records here in Boston. So he knew me, right? Yep. Then he became A&R for Chrysalis and this one. And I was managing Jimmy Miller, the late producer of the Rolling Stones. So, you know, Bruce Dickinson took us to lunch. We had fun back in the day, right? So I sent an act to Bruce Dickinson's office, and I get this form letter, rejection letter from the secretary. I'm like, yeah, at least Bruce is going to personally reject it with me,
Right,
you know.
right.
So I see him at a show, and I go, so thanks for the rejection. He goes, I never got anything from you. I put it in his pocket. I go, here you go. Send the next rejection personally. And he did. But at least I put it in his pocket, you know. So people have to understand comics, music, film. It's the same. It's cheaper to say no.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good way to look at it. I hadn't thought of that. But yeah,
And the music
how
industry
much
know
work
that.
how much work do you have to do after you send a
Well,
signed rejection letter?
Decca Records knew if they said no to the Beatles, they wouldn't waste all that money, and they did. They said no to the Beatles.
So, I mean, there are dozens of stories like that, like giants in the industry who were regularly, like, ignored by the industry they were in or whatever. So,
Cheaper to say no.
for me, I had a clear goal. I knew what I wanted, and there wasn't anybody who's really going to stand in my way. So, a rejection letter was just wallpaper at that point.
Now, I don't know about the new book. Did you do all the inking yourself?
I created the characters, I designed them, I wrote the stories.
Very
I
few
did the
people do that.
illustrations. Yeah, there are very few. Will Eisner was one of them who could do that, who wrote and drew his own art.
It's amazing stuff. Now, what I'm going to say is a compliment to you because as I look through old comic books and newer comic books, the artwork that I'm used to, and I'm spoiled with Jack Kirby, being a fan of Jack Kirby.
Sure.
So you're spoiled.
Yeah.
They get away from it, and it kind of like, okay, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that. I'm looking through your book, and I'm like, this is classic Marvel. This is nice.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
This is the stuff that I like, and so it's
Very
like,
cool.
thank God, you know, staying true to what it's like having that hit record on the radio, and then they alter it later. It's like, no, I want to hear, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I get the dub mixes, I get it, but I want to hear what I know.
Yeah, well, I grew up on Kirby and John Romita Sr., John Buscema, Sal Buscema, John Byrne, Frank Miller. These are all great
They're the
artists,
names that I know.
So I'm probably channeling them as it comes out, and
Sure.
happy to do that. Happy to do that.
You know, Rod Stewart channels Sam Cooke, even though he's not aware of it, but then he is aware. Oh, well, that's where I got that. You know?
Yeah.
Wait, why do they have just a...
So there's public access TV in Danvers and Beverly and Peabody and Salem. So it's a great medium to talk comics.
Cool.
It really is, and it's
Great.
we bring the color into people's homes. There's so much great stuff here. So what is this?
That's a promotional print that I usually hand out to anybody who helps support the project, because I am self-publishing this, so it's a little extra something that you get, a little value added.
So self-publishing is something happening in the music business. In fact, some major artists are happier with the internet,
Yeah, sure.
not going with the majors. How do you feel about?
Well, I was listening to a podcast just the other day. I forget the gentleman. It's a musician. He was in a very popular band in the '70s, and he said he was ripped off regularly by the record companies. It's just the creative accountants, and in order to get any money, you had to spend money on lawyers, and invariably you'd be better off just giving up and moving on. It's just kind of insane. It's not really why I self-published. I'm self-published because I'm very impatient. I don't like to wait for editors or publishers to get back to me, and I don't like to compromise the vision that I've got pounding on the inside of my head. So for me, it's very simple. I produce the artwork and stuff myself, so I could throw 500 copies on a credit card and sell in that shop and see what happens with it.
That's awesome, because also when you have a great relationship with a major, sometimes they say, okay, we'll put it out January of 2017, and the fans want it now,
Yeah.
and you want it out now.
Yeah, and at the same time, I also work for the mainstream publishers too. I just finished a cover for somebody last week, so I try to keep all the plates spinning, keep the options open across the board.
As I said, if you need to interrupt this, or if you're tired of talking, just let me know.
Well, you just missed. I had a line. It was about 7,000 people, and I just took care of them real quick.
I thought they were here for the vinyl.
Oh, it's the vinyl. That's why they were here.
No, I'm only kidding you. No, it's just great when you guys come into stores, and like I said, the atmosphere here is so great. You get the magazines, and you got the books and the DVDs, and it's just the kind of stuff we all love.
I love books. I love reading. I'm crazy that way.
And then by osmosis, your storylines, here's an element.
Sure. Oh, sure. I'm kind of like always watching movies or reading. I'm kind of always like working in my brain, like, ooh, I could have, a little twist here would have made that story better while I'm watching the movie. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but very rarely do I really get to like sit in front of a movie or a book and just get carried away. And I look forward to those experiences, actually.
Try some Hermetic philosophy, the Kabbalion. I wonder if they have the Kabbalion here.
What is that?
The Kabbalion is a book, and it's only when someone tells you about it does it appear in your life.
Oh, really?
And it's written by Hermes Trismegistus, who was actually known as Thoth, the Egyptian leader Thoth.
Him I've heard of.
Yeah, and so when they get the word hermit, people think it's someone shuttered away like Dick Cheney in a bunker, But truly, Hermetic, they teach it from lip to ear. So the Hermeticists would study the book, much like Fahrenheit
451, how they memorize the books.
Yeah, so Hermetic philosophy, the three initiates, they memorize the books and then they write it down, and it comes to you when you're ready.
Okay, so are you sharing that with me?
I am, because
to me?
I assessed that I should after you told me about
Okay.
this. So.
And how soon is it going to come to me? I want to read
Well,
this.
you can go online and just put the
Okay.
Kabbalion in now, and it's
Okay,
up there
now I'll
online.
put it
It's but I've got the book from these great esoteric bookstores like in Cambridge, where you get all this.
I thought it was going to show up on my couch when I get home tomorrow.
no.
Like, mystically. No.
No,
Okay.
it comes to you when you're ready.
Okay.
And then, so there you have it. Now, what is this?
Well, this is just something because we're in a used bookstore. I had a few copies of this. I did the illustrations for this novel with Spider-Man in it.
Venom's Wrath.
Yes, Venom is one of Spidey's biggest villains, most popular villains.
Love them.
So I brought these here thinking, it's a bookstore, so maybe somebody might want to pick it up.
You don't have to say anything, but my feeling about the movies, Spider-Man movies and such, you can say something or you don't have to say anything, but I wish they would adhere to the comics more. X-Men especially. I think the scripts are written. It's what turned us on to
How
them.
long is this show? Because I'll go off for an hour on the X-Men movies.
If you'd like to. I mean, I don't want to. I want you to feel comfortable.
No, No, I'd say largely for me, growing up with this stuff, I think it's great that, these stories that I grew up with, characters that I'm attached to, are being explored in other media. I think it's a great time. But, could they be done better? Or, yeah, sure. Everything could be done better. There are 53 Musketeers movies out there, but are any of them like the book?
There are?
Yeah, there must be. There must be. But are any of them exactly like the book? No. But, there's always room for improvement or reinterpretation for the times. So I try to stay flexible about it. But I'm not one of those guys that walks out of a movie, throwing my keys because I'm angry because, they interpreted Spider-Man incorrectly. I'm not like that. I'm like, this is cool, glad to see it. What's for lunch? That kind of thing.
I felt like that with all of the Stones, the Doors. I wanted to throw things.
Oh, yeah?
And
History was wrong?
Yeah, and 3 of the Doors have been on the show, so... Well, 2 of them and 1 I interviewed separate.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so, and...
3, there's only 3 left, right? So you got
No, there's only 2 left. We have Ray Manzarek on. He's gone now.
Oh, I see. Okay. Can I go online and find that?
Yeah,
'Cause I'd love
that's
to
on that. Yeah, the Ray Manzarek 1 hour, and I kept 1 hour. I haven't put out 1 hour.
Why not?
It was a lecture he did at the Booksmith in Brookline.
Okay.
He used a vulgarity, and I'm like, it's a very PG show, very
Okay.
G-rated show, and
Okay.
I could blank it out, but I
Keep
figured
it out.
people liked the interview we did, so that's the main thing that's out there. But it's nice to have something in reserve.
Okay. Oh boy, I wanna watch that.
But all of a
big
sudden-
Doors fan.
Yeah, he mutated.
So he got it all wrong.
Yeah.
So give me an example of what he got wrong.
Well,
It's been a while since I've seen the movie.
it's been a while since I saw the movie. I was so outraged by it. The Doors were this band that Elektra Records, a folk label, picked up.
Right.
And you want to stay pure to the history. And they were filmmakers. And that whole element is not in the movie. It's too shock, exploitation. It just really outraged me. Okay, so we got Jim Morrison as a child going down the highway, and they saw the dead Indians on the highway, which really influenced a lot of his...
That actually happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what they tell us.
Well,
Now,
right. The story is, but the story is correct.
here's the fun thing. I thought Jim Morrison faked his own death. And Ray Manzarek carried that with him. Ray Manzarek would imply that because Jim was going to jail for something he didn't do at the concert, and they were just out to get him.
Right.
He was found guilty, so he went to France.
Yeah.
So Manzarek says, and you'll see on the interview we did, that they're doing L.A. Woman, and the last thing Jim Morrison said to him was, look at the Seychelles Islands. A man could get lost here. So The Poet in Exile is the book that Ray was promoting when I interviewed him. And it was about Jim Morrison going to the Seychelles Islands when no one would know who he was.
It's not completely unbelievable, but is there no body anywhere? I mean,
Well, this is
buried
great.
in France, right?
Here's great stuff. In Milton, there's a famous author, Stephen Davis. Have you heard of him?
No.
He's done Bob Marley and the Wailers, Jim Morrison, Carly Simon. So he's been on the show a couple of times. He's close friends of mine. I'm sure Gary Summers knows him. So Stephen did this whole book on Jim Morrison because he didn't want to do a Doors book.
Okay.
It's called Jim Morrison. It's
Okay.
probably here.
Okay.
It's worth reading. Now, Stephen is absolutely sure that Jim Morrison died, but I'm like, Stephen, you weren't there. Because I mailed him Secret and Suppressed by Jim Keith. Now, that's a great
Another
book.
book? Another one.
Jim Keith was,
I gotta write these down.
keyword was, well, you'll see the interview tape. That's the
Okay.
beauty of video.
Okay.
Jim Keith's Secret and Suppressed has all these conspiracy theories. The Jim Morrison conspiracy is the grave was too short. A. B. Jim Morrison, to stick it to Led Zeppelin, created a publishing company called Led Zeppelin Publishing. After Jim Morrison died, all of a sudden the publishing company got activated. And so Jim Keith also predicted his own death, went into the hospital and never came out alive. But he figured they were out to get him.
Really?
Because he was unearthing a lot of stuff
He was
people...
uncovering a lot of stuff.
So Jim Keith's Secret and Suppressed, and I got that from one of my co-hosts on my show.
Okay.
And I'm like, I mail it to Stephen Davis, and he goes, this is great reading, but it's fiction. We love you, Stephen. I want to keep it open like Ray Manzarek did.
Okay.
And Ray Manzarek, could Jim Morrison be dead now? Sure. Probably.
By now.
By now.
Probably.
He lived a hard life. Did he die on July 3rd, 1970? I don't believe it. 1971.
Right.
Remember, maybe you don't know, but back in the day, it took 3 days for them to file the death certificate in France. And if I recall, I was 16 at the time. It was 8 days before the news hit America.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So right away I thought, this is like Joplin, Canned Heat's Al Wilson from Arlington, Mass., and Hendrix all died within 31 days.
Oh, of each other? Really?
Yeah. So
Wow.
that was all, Al Wilson was September 1, 1970. Hendrix was the 18th. Joplin was October 4th.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of
Do you
suspicion.
think they're all connected then?
Well, the FBI had dossiers on all of them. J. Edgar Hoover did not want the kids being controlled by rock musicians. Canned Heat, what's Al Wilson going to do? But he was on the cover of a Canned Heat album. There's an upside-down American flag. Must have P.O.
Oh, yeah?
J. Edgar Hoover. Hendrix got involved with the Black Panthers, but got right out because he realized how dangerous it was. Mm-hmm. But all J. Edgar Hoover saw was Black Panthers, Jimi Hendrix.
Sure.
They can always
Sure.
reconnect.
Sure.
And we know Jimi Hendrix, they're coming out now that he was murdered. We all kind of knew that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah,
I
now
did
that-
not know that.
This is my interview with you, but here we go. But
No, this is fascinating.
having fun?
to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm writing a book on Jimmy, and it's a lot about this. Okay, we interviewed Tappy Wright. He was the road manager for Peter Noon and Herman's Hermits, Jimi Hendrix. So Tappy's now coming out with, we already kind of knew. Michael Jeffrey was losing the contract with Hendrix. The fellow that had Curtis Knight, Ed Chalpin, he was in London on the 14th to talk to Jimmy. Jimmy blew him off. On the 18th, Jimmy's dead. Chalpin said they murdered him. I believe John McLaughlin, Mahavishnu Orchestra, he said they killed him. Michael Jeffrey was going to lose a fortune because all he owned with Jimmy outside of management was half of Electric Ladyland. When Jimmy died, he made a
The
fortune
recording
on
studio.
3 albums. But then Michael Jeffrey was in that airplane crash when the French airport was on strike. The air traffic controllers were on strike. Michael Jeffrey, 3 years later, died in an airplane crash. So the whole Hendrix thing is very convoluted, and it prints money these days.
Yeah.
But it was thanks to Eddie Kramer and other people that kept, and Alan Douglas, who kept the legacy alive. But Michael Jeffrey, basically what we heard was that he told Monica Danneman, who's now dead,
And did she die in that window also? No, she did
she
not.
died
Okay.
after she was convicted of libel by Kathy Etchingham, who was one of Jimmy's girlfriends. She wrote a book. Etchingham sued Monica Danneman for libel. Monica lost. She took the hose of her Mercedes, put it in her car, and killed herself 2 weeks later.
Oh, wow.
Tony Brown wrote one of the great books on Jimi Hendrix, The Final Days of Jimmy. You can get it out of a library. It's very hard to find. I have 2 copies. It has
I'm gonna
Jimmy's.
see your place.
It has Jimmy's. You can't walk. It's
Can't
more
walk.
intense than this place. Kathy Etching, Monica. What did you write down?
Final Days of Jimi Hendrix.
Final Day. Thank you, Tony Brown. Tony Brown's dead. Monica's dead. Dolly Dagger. Remember the song?
Sure.
She allegedly jumped out of the Chelsea Hotel window. We think she was pushed out.
Oh, yeah?
Because she called up Buzzy Linhart, who wrote "You Got to Have Friends" for Bette Midler. She called up Buzzy from London and said they killed him.
Wow.
So Buzzy and I had a radio show together, so we have a lot of Hendrix stuff from Buzzy. And he believes, they murdered him. And so
So the case you're making is the FBI didn't like the idea, the revolutionary tone that
Well, J. Edgar
these
Hoover.
guys took?
Yeah.
Him specifically.
I think the FBI today, if they looked into it, I think Mitch Mitchell had Scotland Yard reopen the case and then they just closed it again. But they did reopen it, which tells you a red flag.
Right. There's a reason you reopen the case.
When I was 16 at the time, I read the Boston Globe. It said Jimmy died in the ambulance. He choked on his own vomit. Fiction. If you read the Tony Brown book, he had died in the hotel room with Monica He wasn't even supposed to be there. She had his guitar. He was trying to avoid her.
Oh,
He
really?
only went back to get his guitar. He took 3 sleeping pills, but they had the potency, they were German pills, they had the potency of triple each pill in America, so it was like 9 sleeping pills.
Oh.
So he's out of it, and then they found wine in his lungs. So what the theory is, someone held him down, and they poured wine down his throat and killed him. He drowned in his own.
Right.
But when he got in that ambulance, he was already, rigor mortis had set, and he was already green. He'd been there for 5 hours. Monica cleaned the apartment because it was just full of drugs and whatever. So she and another rock star I won't name, but it's pretty well known. You can Google it. They cleaned the apartment up, and that guy regrets it to this day.
Really? Oh, this is fascinating stuff.
Sorry.
I think there's
I'm
a
here to talk
graphic. Maybe there's a
comics.
graphic novel in there somewhere.
Well,
We could work on.
Janice,
think?
Jimmy, and yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because
Love it.
Al Wilson, what did he do?
Secret history of.
Poor Al Wilson was from Arlington, Mass. Played at Woodstock. Now, Janice, Jimmy, and Wilson all played Woodstock. So Al Wilson dies on September 1st. He's supposed to be in Germany with Jimi Hendrix and Alvin Lee of 10 years after, doing a festival, right?
Oh yeah.
They can't find him, so the manager puts canned heat on the plane. They're playing that night with Jimi Hendrix, and Al Wilson's dead under the redwood trees in California. How eerie is that?
Weird.
So he's supposed to play with Hendrix, and then a few days, 2 weeks later, Hendrix is gone. It makes you wonder.
Certainly worth looking.
But with
Fun to
Hendrix,
explore at least.
but here's the thing: if it was, now Janis Joplin, why was she murdered?
Yeah. I don't know.
Because no one thought it was a murder, but it was like, well, wait a minute, she had a broken arm and a broken nose. You tell me a hotshot did that? 8 heroin addicts or more died that night, so someone put pure heroin out on the street. But there's a lot of questions that there were never questions that Janis Joplin OD'd. Now there are. What is it, 46 years later, now there are questions about Joplin. Hendrix, it's pretty much determined he was murdered. Al Wilson, was he one? How do we get on this? Jim Morrison, The Doors.
Right.
And the Oliver Stone movie not having the Oliver Stone movie
Not being accurate.
and him being
For
the
you.
conspiracy theorist, you would think
Yeah.
he would have.
Well, exactly.
Wouldn't this have been a better movie?
Well, yeah, but a lot of times, history doesn't always make a compelling 2-hour movie, and sometimes you have to compress or you have to move some things around, or you might be saying something. You might have a personal point or a personal expression that you want to bring to this story, and so history does not always make a good movie. Conversely, a good movie would probably never makes accurate history.
They take liberties for
Yeah, sure.
the dollar.
Sure.
Getting back to Spider-Man, when you draw Spider-Man,
Spider-Man was killed. There's a conspiracy. I'm just kidding.
well, we know someone's getting killed next month.
Spider-Man's killed. Yeah, they kill characters at Marvel and DC Comics on a regular basis. It's crazy.
It sells copies,
Yeah.
gets news.
Yeah, well, it gets news. When Superman died in the 90s, it was all over national news.
Superman got married, it was big.
Yep. And the translates to sales. The death of Superman sold like millions of copies.
So I thought it was Captain America that was going, but I guess it's the Hulk.
Yeah, Captain America died a few years ago.
Oh, I'm
You gotta
sorry, I'm
catch
behind.
up.
Well, I'm watching these movies. How did he die if I'm watching the movies?
Yeah, the headlines, how long ago was it? Maybe 10 years ago now. Captain America was killed at the end of the towards the end of the comic book called Civil War, where it was Captain America and Iron Man had different camps that were warring with each other. And so Cap was assassinated towards the end of that storyline. But of course he came back. So yeah, now more recently I think they're killing the Hulk, the original Hulk, Bruce Banner.
And there have been 3 Robins.
He'll be back.
The
Yeah,
death
what
of the second Robin, right?
Second Robin, and the second Robin is back. He's
Oh, is he?
feeling really good now. He's known as the Red Hood. Yeah.
That was one of the most violent comics I've ever seen.
It was a pretty violent comic, especially for kids. Yeah.
Yeah, because the Joker we know is psychotic.
Yep.
That one had to be a Dark Knight one, right?
It was, I think it was an issue of Batman
Oh,
that
really?
he died. Yep.
Because I looked at him like, oh my God, kids should not be looking at this.
Yeah, that was the kids' version. Yeah, it was the Batman. In my opinion, Batman should be an all-access, all-ages comic book. And so that was one of those first kind of, should they be doing this so graphically in a mainstream all-ages book? Sold well. And it was, as a matter of fact, they had a promotional campaign where you had to phone in back in the old days when they had the, the dial
1-900?
phones
Oh,
and the
okay.
yeah, it was 1-900. Do you want Robin to live in this adventure? Or if you do, call this number. If you want Robin to die in this adventure, call this number. And so fans punched in they wanted Robin to die. I think it was really narrow. I forget the exact.
That's wild.
Yeah, so the character that played Robin was not the original Robin. The original Robin was Dick Grayson, right? So Dick Grayson had moved on. He wasn't Robin
Nightwing?
anymore. He became Nightwing.
I'm a Marvel guy, not DC.
Yeah, but Dick Grayson, Nightwing, people know who Dick Grayson is, generally, if you have even basic knowledge of comics, right? He's Robin. And so Dick Grayson grew up, he took on the role of Nightwing, and so the guy who replaced Dick Grayson as Robin, the fans, apparently they didn't care for him so much.
Interesting.
So they voted, it was a narrow result, but they had voted, fans had voted to kill Robin, so they knew what they were getting.
So you're 10 years old and you send in Spider-Man etchings.
I send in Spider-Man drawings that I'm set. Once they see these drawings, they're going to have their socks blown off, and I'm going to be working on Spider-Man for the rest of my life.
Well, but then you have the best Spider-Man covers. So the best-selling Spider-Man covers, was it? Or?
Well, there were number one issues, the most number one issues.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So your dream came true.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
But I
So-
made it happen. I didn't just sit on the sofa and
Right.
wait for somebody to knock on my door,
We find that out about life.
Yeah, exactly. I had a pretty good focus, I knew what I wanted at the time. I missed that kind of focus. Did you ever have that kind of, you saw something, you wanted it really bad and you got it? Did you ever have that?
Yeah, Lou Reed concert.
There you go. You knew you were going to go to see Lou Reed?
Well,
Or
hey, we had to go out to Lenox, Mass. It was a long hike. It was a great night. September 1st, 73. It's still probably my favorite concert.
is it really? And you were like, I'm getting there. I don't care if I have to.
Well, no, we had planned it. It was our band and my photographer and my guitarist, me, and we were 19 years old, or I was. He might have been a little older. But the thing about it, it turned out to be this magnificent show where they were putting this whole new Lou Reed program together, so it was the best of the entire tour.
Oh, wow.
He did Velvet Underground songs on folk guitar.
That's cool.
Then they backed him up for Heroin. He's doing it half folk and half the band's rising up. It was Sunset.
Heroin as a folk tale, really? As a folk
You know the song from the Velvet
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I'm having trouble hearing that one.
Well, what we have, I'll reveal to you what we have. I am 19 and I'm taping it with a unidirectional mic, and I get this great audio of Lou Reed's vocal.
Yeah.
Dinky Dawson, the engineer, is a dear friend of mine. In fact, I represented him at one point in time. He had the stereo cassettes, but he'd only tape to hear the sound from that night, and then he'd throw the cassettes in a file, right? He wasn't taping them for posterity. He was taping them to check the audio.
Right.
Years later, he sold them to Wolfgang's Vault and made some good money. The Byrds and
Oh, wow.
Mahavishnu and all these bands he did, Lou Reed, because he had the sound check tapes. Our third author has the reel-to-reel from what was known as the bootleg of the same show. Mm-hmm. So Alan, our third author, painstakingly put the four signals together: the stereo cassette, my cassette,
Your cassette.
and his reel-to-reel.
Oh, wow.
And we have this incredible album that is 10 times better than Rock and Roll
Now
Animal.
you're going to burn to CD.
No,
and
no, no, we-
Give me next time I see you.
We're very friendly with Lou's people. They have to give their blessing, or we don't do it.
I see. Okay.
And Lou died, and so we were working on this. Lou dies. God bless them, they invited me, and I went to his wake 50 days after
Did you really?
at the Apollo Theater.
Yeah.
Paul Simon sang, Blondie. Blondie was amazing. They did Lou Reed songs.
Yeah.
It was a 3-hour day, a 3-hour send-off at the Apollo to say goodbye to Lou Reed 50 days after he died, so that his wife wanted this Buddhist tradition of his spirit leaving the planet 50 days later.
Oh, okay.
Candles everywhere.
Okay.
It was amazing
Sounds
night.
great. And you were there.
It felt like a Lou Reed concert. You could really feel the spirit of the people that loved Lou giving their all. And it was
Very
just a
nice.
magnificent send-off.
Very nice.
Not many
That sounds
people
great.
get that.
No.
And
That
so
sounds-
Laurie really took care of her husband.
That sounds great. Fantastic.
She's a great performance artist, Laurie.
Laurie Anderson. Sure.
I taped her a 90-minute thing at the Salem Whaling, the Salem Essex Museum in Salem.
Okay.
Across the
This
street.
Salem over here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
She did a 90-minute thing 20 years ago, and so our TV show taped her.
Oh, wow.
So I have some nice archives.
And so I can go where to see these?
We haven't put Laurie out yet,
Jeez.
but you know, there's plenty
Can't
of
hold this stuff back.
We want to be respectful. You know, when Lou passed away, it was like stop the project. It was like people saying, "Oh, you got to put it out now," and I'm like, "No,
I
stop it."
think there's kind of like rights issues and stuff like that.
There's rights. Well, I could put my book out,
Right.
but the album would have to go through that. But the thing is, you want to be respectful when someone passes away. And Marty Balance says, "You've got to cash in on these things when they die." And I'm like, "He's of the Airplane."
Yeah.
I did his DVD, right?
Sure.
I said, "Marty, I'll do it. Thank you. When you go, I'm going to jump on it, man. But no one else, because I'm respectful. But if you want me to do it for others, no, I'm going to do it for you."
Yeah.
You know, because
But timing issues aside, they should come out at some point. Don't
yes,
you think?
because there are fans, as you
Yeah.
know, there's fans of your work, and as you know, doing this stuff, I think is very important. Coming to these stores for you, because people love meeting the people behind what they read.
Sure. That's part of the reason why I do it too. Is there are people that like enjoy the process, and so I think if I were, growing up where I was growing up, wouldn't it have been great to met someone like this and to see the process?
Oh, I'm thoroughly impressed when I see something like this, Joe. I mean, really.
Thank
Did you do the cover?
I did not do the cover, just the inside drawings. Yep.
But it's thoroughly impressive to, this is the stuff some of us grew up on.
Sure.
And, it's imprinted on our consciousness is like this was our life experience.
Yeah.
And here we are with the guy that, contributed in a big, big way.
And for me, it's about comics too. It's not just like the characters and stuff. I like comics. I learned how to read by reading comics. I take in information and I learn better when it's pictures with text. I retain knowledge better.
Interesting. I never thought of
the
that.
form itself. And so I'm kind of an advocate of the form, not just a creator or someone that just likes certain characters or has to tell certain stories. I'm also kind of an advocate of the form as an educational tool. And there needs to be more. I feel like people need to have more exposure, especially in the U.S. You go over in Europe or Japan, and something like this would sell millions of copies. But the U.S. seems to be has a very narrow audience. And I'm trying to spread the good word.
Have you thought of going to Japan?
Yeah, well, it's on the agenda eventually. Sure.
Yeah, because they are fanatical about music, books,
Yeah.
and they get. Again, the Sonny thing. I was telling my friend with the Hendrix book, my co-author, just now in the car, I was just saying, I found all these Sonny videos last night from
Yeah.
Korea and Japan, and they're like us 50 years ago. These are garage bands doing Sonny. We here in America, it's all the jazz greats doing Sonny. Pat Martino, John Schofield.
Yeah,
They've all embraced Sonny, and the jazz guys go nuts on it. They jam on it.
that's great.
But I'm looking at these foreign countries, South America, they jam on Bobby Hebb's Sonny.
That's great.
It's like they're back in the 70s, where we were in the 70s. They're catching up to speed.
Yeah.
But I didn't see that from those countries back in the day.
Have you been over to Japan yourself?
No, but with
You're
the
hearing about it, and
reading and interacting with friends of mine in Japan. There's a friend who's a big music, a Boston music fan from Takashi over in Japan. He's a great, great guy.
Yeah.
Here's a Bobby Hebb single from Japan. It's awesome. Comes in the mail. You know, it's
That's
like
great.
Sonny. Wow, the Japanese imprint.
That's great.
But they get it, and the record companies know they get it.
Oh, really?
So, well, you've seen the movie Lucy.
Lucy.
Lucy, the movie. It's a science fiction movie.
I have not. Is that with Scarlett Johansson?
Yes.
I have not seen
Worth seeing it.
Okay.
And there's a Chinese cast, and then there's the guy, the transporter, the first transporter.
Michael Strahan?
Yes,
Yeah.
Chinese. But Independence Day Resurgence did very well in China.
Oh, yeah?
China, they say, is going to be the #1 movie market in the world this year.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this year? Yeah, I was
Yeah,
going
the
to
end of
say
the
it's going
year.
to happen any moment now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By January, China will, because now that the pop culture has taken over. So Independence Day was very smart, putting Asian characters front and center. And it works on many levels. It works well because now people are realizing we're all people. We're all the same.
Yeah.
And it's kind of friendly and fun to know that China saved Terminator Genesis. Have you thought of a Terminator book or any other book outside of your wheelhouse
Have I thought of
of doing?
doing a story with any other character?
Oh no, of like maybe approaching or them approaching you to do something like Terminator, Predator. There are these things that have crossed over to comics from the film world.
Yeah, well, movie properties. I mean, I think I would crush 24 issues of Planet of the Apes. Do you remember Planet of the Apes movies?
Come on, love them, especially the originals.
Yeah.
It was like
First 5. Yeah,
I
and
was
the new ones
15,
are the relaunch are fairly strong too. But a big fan of the 70s, 60s, and 70s. I think I'd do a pretty bang-up job on that, writing and drawing.
What people forget is the TV show Planet of the Apes was pretty significant
Yeah, the TV show.
because they had the great makeup.
Yep.
And
Well, the
so-
movies as well.
Yeah.
The TV show makeup comes from the movies.
Right, but it was like an extension of the movie, so you almost have a new movie or a couple of movies there. So there were originally 5, right?
Yeah.
So with the TV show, you might have 7 or 8
Yeah.
from the day,
Right.
and that would be awesome.
Those are the TV show is a little bit more all ages, like it's a little bit, and I'm not sure, I think I'd bend it more towards PG-13 and up, but there's a lot of room, there's a dense universe in the Planet of the Apes storylines, and I'd love to tackle a lot of that. I think that'd be great.
Now, is that a property owned by the film companies?
Oh sure, I think Fox, 20th Century
So they bought it from
Fox
Pierre
owns it.
Buell, whoever wrote the Pierre.
That's a good point. Because, I don't know the details of that. Because their interpretation of his novel is very, very different. And I'm not sure of the logistics of that. But I'm sure, the genesis, the creation goes with Pierre Buell, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's some kind of arrangement there. I hope so, at least. But I don't know the details of that. Worth exploring.
That would be great to see you doing Planet of the Apes. And you'll have to come back to the Hughes bookstore here in Burlington, and we can get you onto public access.
All I need is like 3 more heads and 7 more arms so I can work on all of these things. I still got 8 characters to introduce in New Zodiacs. And so the New Zodiacs just introduces 4 characters out of 12 in the first volume. So my hands are quite full.
Do you have a Twitter account for our fans?
I do. It's Joe St Pierre.
So you put at Joe _St. Pierre.
Joe St Pierre.
Facebook?
I'm on Facebook. If you go to newzodiacs.com, that's
there you go.
New Zodiacs with an X, and there are social media links on the website. So.
NewZodiaX. X.com.
X. And why is an X? Well, make this my day job, and you'll find out why it's an X.
Can you say this is Joe St. Pierre on Visual Radio?
Right now?
Yeah.
This is Joe St Pierre on Visual Radio.
And that's our show, and it's just been, I
It's fun.
appreciate
Let's
you
have
giving-
another one focused on the Doors.
Well,
I love the Doors.
we do a counter to this. We do a radio show on Wednesdays 1 to 3 in Somerville.
Oh, yeah?
So if you want to come down to Somerville, you can be on our radio show. We
All
can
right.
put the camera up for that too.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's every Wednesday. We're on 1 to 3 at Somerville in Union Square.
Okay.
It's not too far for you.
No.
And thank you very much for your time.
Oh, I had a great time.
And I want to thank Eric and Kristen and everyone here at the used bookstore for their letting us come in here into their space and taping.
My
And
favorite signing this year has been today.
there you go,
awesome.
people. And we'll be back with another episode of Visual Radio real soon.
See you later.